this is the next morning now. Ambient temp is about 50 degrees or so. And, oh. All right, so if you guys remember, we are still on map sensor, but we have no temperature correction. So this doesn't surprise me that it does not want to start at all. Holding the throttle down to the floor. There we go. Seems to have done the trick. So if you have to hold the throttle down to the floor and it starts, it tells me that it's flooded with fuel. So now that we've got it started up, it seems okay. So that tells me that obviously air temp is going to play an obvious factor. So we had already planned to doing an intake air temp sensor anyway, so not a big deal. Just wanted to kind of see where it's at. We're gonna take it down the street, got to get some more fuel for the Supra again, and then that should be the end of that. So what we're gonna have to do now on the Ranger, since I've been basically kind of tuning it blindly, is we're gonna have to add the wideband intake air temp, wire all that stuff up. But after it started up, it seems like it's running all right. So not a big deal, just a little bit of here and there, just things to notate. So I've been playing a little bit more and more with the DET3. We're currently still mathless. The MAF is still hooked up just to keep codes off, but it is mathless. So what I've actually learned is that if you right click this software, you can set your display as, and currently I have it at voltage. So it makes a little bit more sense. So basically we added an offset of 188 to the MAF. And so that means that the ECU consistently sees 1.88. And you basically fudge these tables to do math. And then you get the MAF voltage, which is analog 1, to match the MAF voltage out. So if you look at analog number 1 out, that is what we're sending to the ECU. And then analog in is what the MAF is currently reading. So I've been just trying to get all that to match. And it seems to be working. It's not perfect by any means, but it's revving up pretty good. And it's, we're getting pretty close here. Whew, what a struggle. We're still not out of the woods yet. So basically, it's just like any other piggyback. You have to really look at the fuel trims. So I've got my scan tool here. The problem is that this car is really old, so the long-term and short-term fuel trims don't react as fast as they should. So what will end up happening is you'll chase your tail. And what I mean by that is that you'll look at your scan tool, it'll tell you, negative whatever. So you'll go to add it here or subtract it here. The car will start to run funny because it's not reacting fast enough. So that's that. That's still not perfect, but I need to get a wideband in here just to get it going. This is pretty common on piggyback ECU type stuff, so this isn't anything new. The second thing is that the MAF to map conversion logger thing got me nowhere close to where it needed to be. So the third thing that I've learned is that you actually have to play with your analog offsets here. So the way it works is that this right here is your step, okay? So you have to do a little bit of fiddling here. The max that this will go is 2.5 volts. That means that it will add 2.5 volts to the analog out, which is the lowest you can go. Then what happens is that this table right here subtracts the adds or subtract the voltage based off of this. So the bigger the number this is, the bigger these changes make in voltage. So what I've learned is that I had to find the happy medium between what the car idled at, which is 0.7 or we'll say 0.8. So we have to get it close enough where these values make sense. So here's the thing. This table only does a maximum of -128 to 28. So you have to find the absolute perfect median. And so what I ended up having to do was I basically would find it, get it to idle decent here, whatever this value is. And then I would go back and I would change either this or this, because what was happening is that if it idled good here and I would go wide open throttle right here, there wouldn't be enough voltage. So in this general area, the stock ECU is like 3 volts, but depending on my setting, it would be somewhere like 4.5 or as little as like 2. So you basically have to play around with this literally first. And so how it was set up before was the truck ran great, but it threw codes. So that does us no good, right? But yeah, so you basically just have to play around with it quite a bit, and temperature correction is going to be something that really needs to be inputted here. But finally, I've got it to where it's actually decent. It's not throwing any codes. Fuel trim is still a bit on the whack side, but it finally runs. We're maxing out the long-term fuel trim here. So we're gonna have to go and remove some more just to see. And that makes sense because if you look at our out and our in, it's about a 25% difference. So we'll go and we're gonna subtract here rather. And you can already hear the truck is running kind of goofy. And then let's go back and see where we're at. See, now it's starting to add fuel. And you can see that our long term a minute ago was maxed out to -25, and now it's starting to climb. So we're in the right direction. We just can't move as fast as you'd like. So I'm gonna go ahead and start pulling some more fuel here. And listen, you can hear the idle starting to act goofy. And so that's what this is really coming down to. Is the fact is that you really want to make these large, massive changes really quickly, but in actuality you can't, because the computer starts to trip out. The factory computer starts to trip out, and if you let it trip out for too long, it eventually will start throwing codes. So look, our trim is pretty close here. If you add them together, we're getting pretty damn close. Maybe not. Alright, so it's adding a ton of fuel now, so that's not the sweet spot there. Let's add a little more. See if we can get these trims to kind of work out. But anyways, so that's all you're doing. It's literally a balancing game. You're literally just balancing in between the voltage steps here and then the factory computer just to get it where it's happy. See that? And now we're a lot closer than what we were. So I'm pretty happy where we're at here. But geez, man, did this take a long time. So some more playing, some more learning, and we're getting there.